Hey everybody, it's Nick, and I was going to make a video on CR and some of the massive egregious problems I see with it, but I started to realize that it was becoming a bit of a 4th edition video, so I'm actually going to combine those two and make a CR video and a 4th edition video. So what problem do I have with challenge rating? Well, I have found in my experience that challenge rating means very, very little actually in terms of how balanced a fight is or seems. Most of it comes down to action economy, and you can throw a really high level monster at low level players, and as long as there's just one monster and a bunch of players, the players are going to be fine. I mean, a player might die, that's genuinely possible, but the party will win generally. So what am I talking about here? Well, in the first session of the current campaign that I'm running, way back when, the players were 5th level, and I put them up against a CR 15 purple worm. The point was to kill an NPC that they had, just to sort of scare them a little bit, and then, have somebody else come in and save them to sort of set everything up. It was a first session, so some things were a little railroaded on purpose. But I had a problem. The players were gonna win. I mean, one of their characters might have died, but they were going to win the battle against a CR 15 purple worm because there was 5 players and 1 worm. I just had a group of level 13 players go up against a Marit. It's a CR 25 creature, and they were going to destroy this thing. There was only 4 of them there that time, and they were going to destroy it because, again, action economy. There were 4 of them and 1 of it. I even had a player 1v1 a Storm Giant, a 13th level player versus a full-on unedited Storm Giant, and he won.
I'm sorry, what did he say?
So challenge rating in 5th edition means very little. It's much more down to the action economy. Now, if you ballparking things, you're getting kind of close. That's all I use it for as a tool, is to say what's in the neighborhood here of what's about right. Just to see what's going to be a reasonable-ish challenge, or if I'm looking for inspiration, the players are about this level and I want an undead, so I'm going to look at like a couple of CR 4 undeads led by a CR 8 undead, and then kind of look for ideas for those things. But in general, trying to balance things based on encounter design, the tables that we've been given, it gets thrown completely out the window if you don't have a roughly similar number of monsters to players, specifically in action economy. This is something I feel is hugely misleading for new DMs. You feel like, okay, this is what it is. The players can take on something that is their level if there are 4 of them. So I have 4 level 8 players. A fair fight for them should be 1 CR 8 creature. In my experience, which is pretty extensive at this point, the players will always destroy that monster. It's not even close if it's just 1. Now, part of this comes down to 5th edition being designed to have between 6 and 8 medium to hard combat encounters per adventuring day, or I know some people are going to get really stickler about combat encounters. It's any encounter that drains resources, hit points, spell slots, etc. Not role-playing encounters where I'm talking to somebody, but traps and anything where I have to use resources, health, and other abilities, including spell slots, to bypass it. So combat or traps, dangerous situations, things like that. But it requires 6 to 8 of those per day, and in my experience, most players, most DMs, most campaigns, most tables don't run 6 to 8 of those an adventuring day. Even if you include things like traps and puzzles, not just straight combats, it's probably closer to 3, maybe 4 of those per adventuring day, at least in my experience. And so trying to figure out ways to challenge players is always very difficult because you have to raise the stakes and make everything much more deadly just to have it be sort of a threat. And that is, getting back to some of the design of 5th edition being a little problematic in that way. But that is sort of my chunk on CR and the problems for it, and a little bit of the solution. But what I miss is 4th edition and how 4th edition did combat. And I was going to ask the question here to be really provocative. Was 4th edition better than 5th edition? And of course, my answer, because I'm running 5th edition, is no. But 4th edition did do some things a little bit better than 5th edition has been doing them. And let's talk about what those are. So outside of even just the amazing digital online resources that we had for 4th edition, where you could just sort monsters and level them up or down level them, run them dynamically through the adventure tools, which is an amazing program. 5th edition doesn't have anything close to that. There's lots of cobbled together online resources of varying degrees of legitimacy, but it's not close to the same level of utility that 4th edition had. Even ignoring those, 4th edition had such well-designed combat because it knew it was a game. I don't want to see, this thing takes 10 minutes, or monsters that have abilities that recharge on a short rest. When's a monster short resting? Like, I get using this monster can do this thing once a day. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But when's a monster going to use a short rest? How often is that happening? But 4th edition knew that's like, hey, this thing can do this once per encounter. What's an encounter? You're doing it right now. So 4th edition was so well designed for combat, and a lot of people had lots of problems with it. I grew up on 4th edition in a time when I wasn't really connected to the zeitgeist of what was happening in the D&D community. I wasn't on all the forums and everything. I knew that in a general kind of way that most people didn't like 4th edition, but I played it, all my friends played it, so it wasn't really that way for us. But I knew that there was sort of like a distaste in people's mouths about it. I think I gathered that was because when they made 4th edition, they sort of threw 3.5 out, and a lot of people really liked 3.5, and it was a fun game, don't get me wrong, but I wanted something a little different, and 4th edition really worked on me. And so I never understood why so many people loathed 4th edition so much, especially when you talk to those people and say, hey, do you like 4th edition? And they say, absolutely not. It's like, oh, did you play it? No, most of the time they didn't. Most of the time it seems like people read it and went, ugh, this is dumb, it's just World of Warcraft, which it isn't. And they hated it right away and they threw it out. They read it and didn't like it. They had no idea how it played because they never played it. And I hate to burst some people's bubbles, but to tell how a role-playing game plays, you do have to play it. So 4th edition did a great job of giving DMs useful and interesting tools, writing monsters like they were meant to be used, like they're actual monsters that the DM is using against the players, not like they're designing their ecology into the rules of the game. No, I don't need that. I don't need to know how often gnolls can do this thing in their society. Just give me a stat block. I'm running a monster here. It's not a player character. It lives and dies as soon as it comes onto or off of the table. I don't need to know everything about this monster. And in general, I homebrew stuff, so I'm going to throw out most of your lore anyway. I gotta calm down here. I'm getting a little passionate about 4th edition because so many people seem to hate it so much. And at the end of the day, it was a game. It was fun. I had fun playing it. It's a good game. It doesn't do everything perfectly well. There are lots of problems with it, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. That's fine with me. But it did do lots of things really well, combat being one of them. The only problem I had with combat was it lasted so long. You didn't have these quick, short fights. Even, brief fights lasted an hour in 4th edition, and boss fights like 2.5 hours. And that's not to everyone's taste. It wasn't to my taste that it took so long because there were so many different things that were happening, but I liked how monsters were set up and designed for DMs to run. And I think Matt Colville is doing the Lord's work designing action-oriented monsters, and I think that's going to be a fantastic addition to the 5th edition sort of community of homebrew and the like, and I'm excited to use some of those monsters. I've designed a few of myself. I think they're very useful to get back to relevant and useful action-based monsters. But we do have this problem in 5th edition of the way things are designed, it's not going to be a balanced fight if there's one monster and a bunch of heroes. So I know that was a little rantier than most of my videos. I apologize. Those are some of my thoughts about the CR in 5th edition, as well as some of the things that 4th edition did really well, and I don't know why we threw them out. So feel free, especially if you are a newer DM who wasn't familiar with 4th edition, go back to it. A lot of people haven't played it, so they don't know things about that edition of the game, and it's really easy to steal some stuff, and it's very useful. I highly recommend it. So those are some of my thoughts. Let me know what you think, what issues you have with CR in 5th edition, or what fixes you have for it, any experiences you have with 4th edition, or maybe you haven't ever played it and now you kind of want to, which I highly recommend that you at least dip your feet in for, like a few sessions, learn the system, actually play it, and then let me know what you think. All right, everybody, I am gonna keep trying to cook up new ideas. I want to keep making these videos. I want to get back into YouTube environment and keep sharing content with you folks and sharing the things that I have learned so less experienced DMs or differently experienced DMs can take some of the things that I have learned and use them in their own game, or realize how dumb some of the things that I am saying are and come up with your own ideas that are way better than mine. I challenge you and encourage you to do so. But until then, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.